Does that mean you will feel bored sometimes? Yeah, it will, but that's okay. Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back. It's Ash, your truth-bombing fairy godmother for everything love, dating, and relationships. It feels so good to be back filming again. As I mentioned in my last video, I've actually been on holidays for the past couple of weeks, and as amazing as it was, I missed you all like crazy, and I'm very, very happy to be back. In my last upload, I spoke about the attraction and the addiction to roller coaster, chaotic relationships. And as promised, I said I would do an entire separate video on the concept of feeling bored by healthy, consistent, stable relationships. So that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. And of course, how we can actually heal from these patterns of feeling bored by people who are actually good, loving matches for us. But first, if you think you could benefit from new love, dating, and relationship videos every single week, then I would love it if you considered subscribing. And as always, if you found this video helpful or if it resonated with you in any way, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up below. Okay, so in my last video, I discussed the reason that so many of us feel turned on by drama, chaos, uncertainty, or a lack of security in our romantic relationships. And this is often due to growing up in environments where feeling secure and safe, either emotionally or physically, was simply not our norm. Perhaps we had a home that was especially volatile or unpredictable, or perhaps we simply had caretakers who were just not emotionally available to us in the way that we needed them to be. And as a result, in adulthood, it's very common to feel drawn to or ignited by people who mirror that experience. And at the same time, we will also feel bored, restless, or anxious when presented with healthy, stable, secure love. And one of the most common ways I see this manifesting itself is when people are addicted to the honeymoon phase of a relationship. Because during the honeymoon phase, things are still somewhat of a mystery. They're usually quite light or even more surface level, and therefore the reality or the sometimes ugly, brutal, raw parts of life and true intimacy with another person haven't really been tapped into yet. And once things in the relationship begin to turn that corner and that element of mystery begins to fade and those feelings of butterflies and excitement begin to subside, people who are only turned on by unpredictability and uncertainty as opposed to safety and security will generally flee. And I was absolutely one of those people. Relationships with unpredictable, uncertain, unavailable partners allowed me to perpetually stay in that honeymoon phase. So those were the relationships that felt right to me. And I want to point out here that the term honeymoon phase doesn't necessarily mean that things were good or even particularly enjoyable. The quality of my relationships with my ex-partners was all but interestingly, because of the lack of genuine emotional connectedness and availability, I never progressed past that initial stage of craving them all the time, desperately wanting their attention, always seeking and craving their approval, etc., which is what happens in insecure relationships. My emotions, both good and bad, were in a constant heightened state because I was always left to guess where I stood. And that is very much still a type of honeymoon phase because I never exited that "I'm so obsessed with you, please love me" stage. Because with stability in a relationship comes a sense of boredom sometimes. And I never got the chance to feel bored by my ex-partners because I never had true security. And when we don't know better and we chase people from a wounded part of ourselves that feels turned on by disconnect and abandonment, we interpret the boredom that sometimes comes with stability as a bad thing. We see it as a red flag instead of a sign that we have entered a more genuine, healthy, safe, secure bond with another human. I've been very slowly working my way through a book called Come As You Are by Dr. Emily Nagoski. And in it, she very extensively discusses this phenomenon of particularly women feeling highly turned on and stimulated within relationships that are under some type of threat, aka relationships that we are not fully emotionally safe or secure within. And the psychological science behind it is absolutely fascinating, so I definitely recommend you read this book. But I know that this is something that so many of us have experienced. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to over the years who have admitted to me that the most in love they've ever felt, which I think they're confusing in love with sexual arousal and desire, but anyway, the most in love they've ever felt were with partners who were toxic, unpredictable, and emotionally unavailable, as opposed to those who were safe, healthy, and loving. And they feel this way most likely due to the extreme amount of emotional stimulation and therefore lack of boredom that they experienced in those relationships. So, how do we heal this pattern? How do we turn towards healthy, loving relationships instead of interpreting boredom or restlessness as signs that we should leave or go and chase the next high? Firstly, I'll reiterate the suggestions that I made in my last video. Taking responsibility for your desire and your cravings for spontaneity, excitement, adventure, newness, etc. is absolutely vital. It is not your partner's job, or anyone else's job for that matter, to keep you on your toes or to keep you emotionally stimulated. You have to learn how to meet that need yourself in healthy, non-destructive ways. Things like traveling, going on little spontaneous adventures, nurturing your creativity, staying connected to more playful parts of your spirit are all things that will have to remain a priority for you. That way, when you do feel bored or understimulated by the lack of emotional highs and lows in your healthy, stable relationship, you don't project those feelings of restlessness onto your significant other or interpret them as a sign that you should ditch them for someone who will keep you more interested by causing you emotional chaos and turmoil. You have to learn to work with your patterns in ways that don't involve re-traumatizing yourself in your relationships. My second suggestion is one that Elizabeth Earnshaw at Liz Listens on Instagram explained so perfectly recently, which is to stop entering relationships with people with the aim of taming the chaos, aka trying to fix, change, or win over people who are not emotionally available to us from the get-go. As she explains it, when we grow up in the midst of chaos, we will of course hope to one day have peace. Sometimes, though, this early experience will normalize chaos in our relationships. We might believe that the only way to peace is through the chaos, not recognizing that there is another option, to start with a relationship that is safe and peaceful from the get-go. We hope that we can tame it, that we can change it, hoping one day we can change something we could never change in our childhood, yet deeply desired to have different. The adult self tries to heal the child self by making a similar situation different. Yet we often find that we cannot make these situations different. The challenge stays the same. And it's the challenge of trying to change something or someone that allows us to stay perpetually stuck in that place of honeymoon-ish limbo, where we can feel perpetually emotionally stimulated and turned on by the uncertainty, yet also completely deprived of genuine acceptance, intimacy, and love with another person, where we can forever avoid feelings of boredom, yet also feel completely alone and abandoned. And you deserve better. You deserve to enter a relationship with someone who is available, safe, stable, and secure from the beginning. Does that mean you will feel bored sometimes? Yeah, it will. But that's okay. That's actually not a bad thing. And I think most, if not all, relationship psychs and therapists would agree that periodic boredom in a relationship is a really good, healthy sign. Because when you are in a long-term relationship with someone that doesn't play games, doesn't keep you in the dark, and is fully emotionally open, present, and available to you, that allows you the emotional space and the opportunity to feel bored sometimes. And just like with any other uncomfortable emotion or feeling, we have to learn to welcome in our boredom, to acknowledge it when it's there, to take responsibility for it, and to nurture it. Not to see it as this terrible, awful thing or a sign that we are doing something wrong or that we are with the wrong person. Befriend your boredom and learn what it is your inner child needs from you in the moments when it comes up. Okay, you gorgeous people, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. But as always, I would love to hear what you think, and if feeling bored by healthy, stable, secure love is something that you've struggled with, or perhaps you're currently struggling with. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.
Ooh, when I get you inside.